And there are these light beings, and like just these lights that go up into infinity. And these were conscious beings, and I'm just this tiny little person looking up. It's just a very surreal experience. So they call themselves guardians of consciousness, guardians of dimensions, and the feeling was that these were beings that had tremendous power and responsibility over conscious evolution. And they were responsible for different realms, like creating different worlds and creating different realms, different dimensions. And the whole point of the places that they create are places where conscious beings can go, light beings, souls, deities can go in order to expand their conscious awareness. In June of 2022, I successfully made contact with extraterrestrial higher dimensional beings. They've asked me to share with you my ongoing experiences. Stay till the end of this video to learn where to go so that you can get more information and more tools to help you expand into the 5D Ascension experience. Enjoy the video. I know that I'm going someplace to another dimension because I can feel in my body, I can feel the higher dimensional energies moving through me. It's not part of our reality. So I get pulled through all of these wormholes and I get led down like this long stone stairway, stone like circle, and there are these light beings, like just these lights that go up into infinity. And these were conscious beings. They greeted me, in the same way that a lot of the light beings have greeted me. Mahadeva, it's our privilege to be in your presence and that kind of thing, and I'm just this tiny little person looking up. It's just a very surreal experience. So they call themselves guardians of consciousness, guardians of dimensions. And the feeling was that these were beings that had tremendous power and responsibility over conscious evolution. And they were responsible for different realms, like creating different worlds and creating different realms, different dimensions. And the whole point of the places that they create are places where conscious beings can go, light beings, souls, deities, can go in order to expand their conscious awareness. And so the feeling I got is, in order for consciousness to expand, they have to be put in some kind of, distinct, limited space, whether that's, a higher dimensional space, it's still limited, or whether it's our third dimensional space, which is very limited. Consciousness has to fit itself inside some kind of limited world, an experience, some kind of virtual reality. And then that allows the soul then to play out different scenarios. So that's what these beings were. They start asking me, they say, Mahadeva, what do you think should happen with planet Earth in terms of planet Earth's ascension? And I said, you're asking me? And they said, yes, we want to know if you had complete control over it, how would you do it? What would be the sequence of events? So I went, okay. And I thought about it. I said, let me think about it for a second. And I thought about it. And I said, okay, here's what I would do. And I started talking about how I would have the earth get hit by these higher frequencies, which would wake people up, which would shake us out of our hypnosis. And that then, I went through specific list of when and how people should wake up and how the dark forces should be exposed. And I went all the way to, the actual ascension where we go to a higher frequency. And anyway, I had this list of what I thought would be the best way to do that based on what I wanted. Here's what I want to see. And then they sort of talked amongst each other, and I could see them, feel them really communicating with each other and sort of talking it through. And then they come back to me and they say, okay, we're going to work on this, and we appreciate the input, and we'll get back to you. And I was like, so I don't understand. I'm just a tiny human. Why do you care what I think? And they were shocked at that. They were like, what do you mean? It's really important that you share with us what's going on down there. We need your perspective. I said, why do you need my perspective? And they said, you don't remember. And I go, remember what? And they said, you're one of us. And then the next thing I knew, I'm one of these pillars of light, and I'm, in this circle with these other pillars of light. And, they said, then they went through this whole history of how we have been creating all of these different worlds and these different dimensions. And we've been doing this since the beginning of, the emergence of consciousness. And I don't know if these guys said it, but somebody said to me, you were the one who awakened God. That was one of the weirdest communications. I don't know if these guys said it or not, but it was along those lines. They were talking to me like I should remember. And they said, we've been doing this for billions of years. And we decided we were going to come up with a very powerful world where the most advanced souls, the most advanced conscious beings, the most advanced gods in the multiverse could go in order to really learn how to gain power in terms of creating worlds, in terms of expanding consciousness and becoming more and more powerful conscious beings. And they were like, you've been doing this with us for billions of years. And then they started talking about why Earth is so special, that this very dense third dimensional experience where we experience ourselves being isolated, we experience ourselves as being alone, we experience ourselves as not knowing who we are, and we're at odds with each other, and we have to really, really put a huge amount of effort to awaken to our soul essence. And they said, this was your idea. You're the one that came up with that idea for this world. And then they explained to me how we discussed it, I guess, for millions of years. We discussed it for a very long time about exactly how the world should be, what it should be like. This has to be a very difficult world because this needs to be the premier location for souls who want to become the most powerful deities in the multiverse. You only grow when there's a lot of pressure, when things are very difficult. And so there was this discussion about how difficult it should be. And they said, you were the one that came up with the idea that souls should forget. They should come here and forget who they are, because then their awakening will be truly authentic, because they won't be operating from the awareness of who they are in 5D, because that's too easy. That's what it's like in all the other worlds. Even no matter how difficult it is, they still have a connection to their higher dimensional self. So it's easy. The worlds are easier. On the positive side, they're more pleasant, they're more loving. But the negative side is that souls get kind of lazy. They don't really need to learn all that much. They don't have to work as hard to grow. And they said that you were really, as I'm talking about it, I can feel energy hitting me. They said you were really insistent that this had to be a very difficult school, that people had to forget who they were. And more than that, you said there has to be a real danger that people could forget who they were and get trapped into a lower vibrational state. And if that risk wasn't there, you said, then there isn't going to be any real growth. And so there was a lot of talk about that, because the risk was, something to think about. Souls are going to have to, when they come to this place, they're going to have to be told ahead of time. Listen, this is a very risky place. You might end up in a karmic loop, and you're going to have to go through some really challenging, difficult things. It's going to be very difficult. Are you sure you want to do this? And so apparently they said that I convinced them that we should make this as difficult as possible, and that there had to be a real risk. And so we all agreed that consciousness, the expansion of consciousness, it was worth the risk. Whatever negative risks there were, the payoff was more important. And so everybody agreed that was the case. And so they went ahead and went along with my idea. And then I volunteered. So bear in mind, according to them, I'm one of these huge pillars of light, and I say I'm going to go down and I'm going to incarnate. As I'm going to incarnate from the beginning to the end. I'm going to be there. And I said I need to be there because it's my idea. So I have to be willing. I can't ask somebody to do something that I myself am not willing to do. And maybe while I'm there, I'll be able to have some kind of influence or effect, so that maybe I can do some good from within the program. All right, so if you thought that was a mind bender, then I encourage you to take a look at the next video, where I talk to you about my past life as a Neanderthal warrior. The things that happened to me in that first past life memory have reverberated all the way up until this present life. In fact, what I found out now in hindsight, after having interacted with all of these light beings and higher dimensional beings, and understanding who I was in the fifth dimension before I ever incarnated, now when I take a look at this first life that I had as a Neanderthal warrior, the impact karmically that my choices and my interactions had in that life have been reverberating all the way up until the present moment. Not only that, but it gave me a window into understanding who I was before I incarnated, because that first life as that Neanderthal warrior and the amazing drama that happened to me during that life, that really told me who I am in terms of my human identity, and more importantly, what my purpose has been here in this third dimensional reality in all of my lives. Both positive and negative, the ways that I've reacted, it all started with this first incarnation as a Neanderthal warrior. So I want to share that with you in the next video. So if you want to have access to the practices that have given me the ability to experience all of these past lives and future lives and higher dimensional experiences, the abilities that I have to be able to communicate with higher dimensional beings, with extraterrestrials, if you want to have access to that kind of power, go here to michaeldenney.org. Take a look at all of the ways that you can access the tools that I provide to you. You can go to my Patreon page. There's a link there. You can subscribe, get access to things like the Warrior 90-Day Lightning Qigong, or you can go to the shop there and take a look at the single practices and the single teachings that I have on there, which people have been, I don't advertise it enough, but people talk to me all the time and tell me how powerful these practices are. They've completely changed their life. So I encourage you to take a look at here, michaeldenney.org. So also make sure to subscribe, hit the thumbs up, and comment. The YouTube algorithm really loves that, and I would like to see my channel grow. I would also lastly like to ask that you please come and enjoy the live guided interdimensional meditations, which we do every Wednesday and Saturday at 8:30 p.m. Eastern Time. It is free, it costs you nothing, and I will guide you into very powerful meditations, and it's very likely that you yourself will have a direct personal connection with one of these higher dimensional light beings that I work with. And so come check it out. If you can't make the live stream guided meditations, you can go to the live section on my YouTube channel. You could look at the recorded archived videos there, and they're really great. Check them out. I mean, some of them, just check them out. You'll see. If you're wanting to have the kinds of experiences that I have, that is probably the fastest and best way to do it. So that's it, my friends. Thank you for showing up. I'm going to look forward to seeing you in the next video, where I take you through an amazing experience, an amazing life that I had as a Neanderthal warrior. Take care.